I throw trash all over the ring. And then I start eating garbage.
Hello, Wasteland! Yes, and welcome to today's episode. So, previously I've made a car entirely out of scraps from my workbench, and I've had people since then challenge me to make a car from literally nothing, from garbage, from things we chuck away, from sticks and rocks that you'd find outside in your garden. So, we're taking sort of the next step, which is converting a Gaslands toy car using only materials that traditionally you'd throw away. So things like your scrap paper, cardboard, plastic, things that would normally go in the recycling or go into the trash, as well as some materials that you can find around the home. Okay, so let's just jump straight into this then. So I'm going to be using this old toy van that my dad gave me the last time I saw him. And it is a Corky Jr.'s US van, which I can only imagine stands for United States of Van. So the first bit of junk I want to try and use in this build is one of those coffee pod refills. So if we were to cut off the bottom, now I thought this foil might be a bit thicker than it actually is. It's just like tin foil, it just rips straight off. But we might be able to use that. But underneath, that's pretty cool. Now, I've not seen one of these before myself. I don't know what this is meant to be or what it does, but I can tell you right now that is a cool piece of plastic, and that can be used for another project. So even though this got ripped, I mean, let's try and use this as like some sort of armor front grating on the driver's windscreen, you know? That's what this is all about. This is taking materials that normally we'd throw away, and that would include the little scrappy bits, which you can cut to shape, and let's just super glue those in place. Now, I'll say this now, we're going to be using a lot of super glue this episode, so make sure you got a window open when you're making this today, alright? Now that goes in there nice and easy. Just brush off any excess. And you can go around and use as much of this as you like, or use a different material to cover up the front windscreen. This video is all about showing you materials that normally you may not think about, including gift cards. Yes, now I have had a few people tell me, I can't find plasticard where I live. What can I use? Gift cards, cereal box card. There's a lot of cards out there that normally people just ignore. Personal favourite of mine has to be, of course, food packaging plastic. Now, admittedly, we're not after the burger in this instance, we're after the actual plastic it comes in, but the whole thing with these is while the outside plastic might be a bit thin, the plastic around the lid area tends to be quite thick. And if you cut that with a pair of scissors, you get this wonderfully thin and wonderfully malleable material. But already here, we've got some replacements for plasticard, which maybe you've not thought of before. So how do these stack up if we were to compare them in this build? So let's use all three. Well, first off, we've got cardboard. You guys know what cardboard is like. It's really easy to work with, it's really simple. You can cut it to any shape, you can twist it and bend it however you like. However, it is made up of little micro layers of like paper mulch, so it can fall apart if you're not careful, if you don't treat it right. And I find if you're trying to do like battle damage with a knife or something, it can be hit or miss. So for like brand new fresh pieces of armor plating, or in this case some straps on the front of the engine block, it works great. What about gift cards? How do they stack up? Well, like all the plastics we're looking at today, you can just take a hobby knife and cut some grooves and little chips out of it and create some battle damage. And it just works like regular plasticard. The only thing I'd say is if you try and use a file or something like that, unsurprisingly, because these things are designed to be carried around in your pockets with loose change and keys and all that, they got a little film coating, but if you persist at it, yeah, you can get some good grooves in there. So let's super glue that on the passenger side. For all of our American viewers out there, that's where the passenger side should be. Alright, but what about the clear plasticard? Okay, well, just like the gift cards, you can chip that up with a knife, nice and easy. But the best thing here is, because it's quite thin, you can take a pair of clippers or pliers or whatever, just use your hands, you can twist and warp it into all kinds of bent and buckled shapes, which I really like. And this is one of those things that I think a lot of people overlook. They just chuck it straight in the trash or the recycling, and you go, well, hang about, you could make some cool, like, temporary wheel arch covers. Okay, so we got the armor plates. What about some rivets? Well, toothpicks are a classic for that. But I'll say, while there are plastic toothpicks out there, all I've got are wood. And wood, when you cut it with a craft knife, it tends to splinter. Now, attaching them is really easy. You just get a drop of super glue and then just drop the rivet on there. You can use a knife or even a pair of tweezers to get this in place perfectly, but years of doing this, I just like to do it by hand and just drop that on there. Now, this isn't like a 40k vehicle. You don't need to try and put rivets over the entire thing. Just put them every so often, make it look believable, like it's holding the plates in place, and it really helps tie it together when it comes to painting. Another trick is to do that sort of submerged rivet look by just taking a drill and drilling a couple of holes in the corners. I know the Scratch Bashing channel really likes that technique when doing, all their orc builds. But super simple, super effective, and before you know it, you've got something that looks like it's come out of the Wasteland. Okay, now we have these Tamper evidence seals, which for the longest time I didn't even know they had a name. I always just considered them the irritating bits of plastic you get at the top of drinks. But yeah, if you've ever opened a dropper bottle for paint or e-cigarette liquid or even just a bottle of Coke, it'll have one of these on there. It's to show whether or not it's been previously opened. Creates that nice clicky sound when you turn it. But I'm sure we can do something with that. This is the lid from a toothpaste tube, as you guys know. And you look at it and you think, well, what can we turn that into? Well, I look at it and I'm thinking tank turret. So let me show you what I mean. It'll need a little work. We'll have to take off the little lid like tab that allows you to open up the cap. But once that's done, you get this really nice uniform shape that I think if you put a tank barrel on there, man, it's going to look fierce. So yeah, this recycling van is going to be no joke. But we're going to need a tank barrel. So what are we going to use? Well, one of my personal favourites will always be lollipop sticks. Now, I know a lot of people have gone forwards and backwards with, can you actually get plastic lollipop tubes? What is the deal here? Where do you get these? I find it comes down to how cheap the brand is and the fact that if we were to glue this on as it is, it would be way too big. Way too big. Look at the size of that. So I'll cover where to find these at a later date, but just seriously look at your lollipop sticks. They're out there. Now, to make a smaller tube, I like to use cotton earbuds. Problem is, these ones aren't plastic. These ones are actually a condensed paper tube. I imagine it's cheaper to manufacture, but you can actually see, if you squint and look at the screen real hard, you can actually see the fibers that make up this thing. Which is a shame, because again, just like the lollipop sticks, some of them use paper, some of them use plastic. So what can we use instead? We need a thinner tube. What about the inside of a pen? Every pen has that ink reservoir, which typically is held by a plastic tube. In this case, solid white. So we don't actually know how much ink is left in the pen. That's the one small danger with working with pens. If you can't see inside, you don't know how much ink is left. But it'll cut, it'll glue, it'll work just fine, and before you know it, you can make a little tank turret. Now what else? What else does this build need? Well, the tank turret I feel needs like a door or something on top. So let's take the tip from an e-cigarette liquid dropper bottle. If you cut off the tip and then cut off the bottom, you get this nice little round disc with a hole in the middle, which is perfect for just putting something like a bit of a paper clip and making a handle. Ah yes, the paper clip. Truly, it is God's gift to man. It's such a versatile little thing, and yet it's so overlooked. I don't think I've done a single build without using a paper clip at some point, because you can do anything with it. I'll have to build a car one day just out of paper clips. But there you go, there is the tank turret on there. Okay, so next step, let's make another weapon. Now here in the UK, we have these wonderful little caps that come on the end of our plugs. Now I know in the US you use a different type, and there's so many different kinds of plug around the world, it's ridiculous. But here in the UK we have these ones. And I'm sure this would apply to you guys as well. But to me it kind of looks like something that could be turned into like a little rocket launcher. So using the oldest trick in the book, using toothpicks, let's make a rocket launcher. Now, I know some people are a bit hit and miss when it comes to using toothpicks in their builds. Some people think the spikes are a bit too long, they're a bit too recognizable at a distance. I like to think if you do it right, if you control the toothpick, you can make it look real good. So that's what we're doing here. I like to try and use different materials in these builds, and I've talked before about using wires, like from a computer mouse. And that's what this is. This is actually the wire from that computer mouse for that mouse build that I did like a few months back. And by just gluing that in the back of the launcher and gluing that up to like a little plastic detail we stuck on the side there, already it looks like a complete build. And you know what? When I look at this now, I'm pretty happy with how it's turned out. I mean, that's the thing. We've used only recyclable materials to do this build. And you could go beyond this. You could keep experimenting. I tried making this ram out of the 2 pieces of ring pull from, soft drink cans or alcoholic drink cans by just cutting them to create that curved shape and then using that as a frame to bend cardboard on. So like there's a whole bunch of things you can do. But let's move on. Let's look at the magical world that is painting. So I've already taken this off screen, sprayed it black, and the early stages of painting are always the same. Brush on brown, brush on silver. Like at this stage, it does not matter what the brand is. Just get the colors on there. You could use craft store paints. It's whatever. Now for this one, I'm going to be using some Castellan green. And I'm going to try and do a technique that Scratch Bashing does on his channel, where when it comes to painting colours, he doesn't just paint the entire thing, every inch of every surface. He'll try and paint in certain areas and then leave the surrounding like edges of the metal bare, so it looks like chips, which I hope you can kind of see here. If we go around the tank turret, I'm going to leave a lot of the top of this bare metal so you get the effect that I'm talking about. But go have a look at that guy's channel in his videos. They're absolutely rock solid, and I hope he continues to make more of them because I personally, I really enjoy them. I love seeing people come up with creative uses for just junk. So after you've got that base color down, you want to lighten it. And I'm doing this by adding some beige and just mixing that into the green to create this olive color. And then you're adding it to basically just the tops of the panels. So where it's like the top of the vehicle, where it hits the roof, where the light would hit it. And now we're going to do the same, but with the bottom and with a darker color, in this case black. So we create this real deep green, and we're adding this all at the bottom of the panels. And I really quite like the effect that you can achieve with this. I think it looks really solid. The only trick is to make sure that you don't get it where you don't want it, but we'll be covering this with a wash later on. It'll be fine. Something I wanted to try is mix up some orange and create like a rusty layer around the top. And I think I went a bit overboard because I got a lot of it like on the roof and a lot of it sort of in places that I didn't need it or didn't want it. But the idea is this is where like the rain would naturally catch and land and would start to like build up corrosion. But we're also going to do it around the base of the vehicle as well, because at the end of the day this is a wasteland vehicle. This thing is going through deserts. It's going to be rough. It's going to be beat up to hell, regardless of how recently it's had the body work done. I mixed a bit of yellow into that orange just to lighten it a little bit, and we're doing another layer over the top of that. This just helps bring out some of the highlights. And then it's the most universally loved stage in any project. We're taking some washes, in this case Agrax, Earthshade and Null Oil, and we're going over the entire thing. Now here's one for you proper old grogs like myself. Do any of you remember before Null Oil it was called, I think it was Ebon Stone or Badab Black or something like that? But anyway, here you can see it dry. Comment down below if you know what I'm on about. I remember what I'm on about, but I can't. It's one of those weird things. So with that dry, let's start doing a little bit of chipping, and it's like painting the silver. You've got to be a little bit careful. You don't want it to be too, you don't want to cover every single part of this model in really bright silver, because you're just going to ruin all the work you've done up till now. I'm going to do a nice early dry brushing of beige on the bottom to get that nice sandy look, and to bring out the United States of Van sign. But I'm also going to pick out certain areas, certain little raised details on the van itself. But this isn't the final dusting, that will come after we've done the tyres. Now I'm going to take a moment to do some of the little fiddly coloured bits, like painting the rockets yellow and painting the little cable that connects it to the van red. And then after that we're going to look at doing just a bit of freehand work. So this being a recycled material van, let's paint a recycling logo on it. How hard can it be, right? It's just a triangle made of arrows. How hard is that? So let's take this slow, let's break this down. So I'm going to be painting effectively a triangle, but we're not connecting up all 3 points of the triangle. So start by painting 3 dots that represent the 3 corners, and then paint a solid line about halfway along on the left side. So it's not trying to reach each point, it's just trying to go halfway along. Then we're going to do the back end of the arrow, which is just a tiny little stubby bit that reaches, say, maybe a fifth of the distance. You know, it's not you're not trying to connect this up and make a triangle. We're trying to make the recycling sign. And I'm doing this without instruction. This is all in the heat of the moment. Hey, let's just paint a recycling sign. So yeah, this will either look good or it'll look bad. Now we're painting the actual arrow part of the arrows, and that's just a line on either side. Just use whatever brush you feel comfortable doing this in. I mean, some people like to use pens and things on their models to do freehand work, and to be honest, I don't blame them, because some of the work people can do is crazy good. But this is just, you know, something I thought I'd try and see what you guys thought. And even if it looks bad, it doesn't matter. This is like a gang sign. The recycling gang. There you go. So layer up over the top of it, and before you know it, you'll have a really solid looking recycling sign. I mean, it's such a universal symbol. You shouldn't have any issues with being able to see what it is at a distance. Now, something I've really wanted to try on this build, but I've not tried in any of my vehicles before, is using just a regular old pencil to do scratch lines in the paint, because more often than not you see like these pro painted models and they'll have these infinitely fine little scratches that they've painted on. You're like, man, how do you do that? Well, it turns out a lot of the guys just use like pencils. It can be a bit hard to see, so let's just skip on. But here we are with the final product. Yes, the recycled van, United States of Van. Here it is. And I've got to say, it's been a while since I've done one of these videos, and it's been too long, because this was really good fun. I really enjoyed this. And I hope you guys have found something useful in this video, even if it's just painting a recycling sign or going, hey, that clear plastic, actually that's pretty good, I should use that. More often than not, there's materials that we just throw out and we don't think about. But I think if you do start to look at it, you can make something pretty good from nothing, because at the end of the day, this was all stuff that was going to go in the bin. Now, you might be looking at the van and going, oh, the turret's a bit small, or the rocket launcher seems a bit big. How does this compare to other sizes? Well, let's have a look at that now. So here it is next to one of my little prisoner delivery vans. And here it is next to one of my police interceptors that I painted up using Kyamsil Design bits. So if we just compare those side by side, yeah, it's a pretty good size. I mean, the little tank turret, maybe not a battle cannon, maybe more of a machine gun, but yeah, I think it looks the part. And again, as I said, considering this is all made of rubbish, I think it's pretty good. So now we're here at the end of the video. There's a few things we need to wrap up. I am going to be doing another one of these videos in the coming weeks. In 2 weeks' time, we'll be doing the video for Car of the Month of July 2020. So if you're entering that competition, you better get it in. At time of recording, it's the 16th of July, so you've only got a couple of weeks left. And I just want to say, last week, I said that I'm going to start doing my Patreon car giveaways each month, and that is true. This month I'll be giving away May and July, and then in August it will be June and August, and then we'll be fully up to speed. Is it going to be the kind of smaller cars that you see here? Well, no. That's right. To celebrate, the fact that you guys are willing to support me on Patreon, I'm going to be giving out the worm god, the sandworm that I made. That's going to be going out to someone. But that's not all. I'm also going to be giving away a police interceptor and one of my prison cars as a 2-car whammy prize to someone. So for May's giveaway, someone will be getting the sandworm to say thank you for being the first. And for July, someone is going to be getting 2 cars for the price of 1. So if you ever want to be part of the car giveaways in the future, they will be given away to anyone, regardless of if you're a patron or not. But for now, I can only afford to do it for the guys that are willing to put money towards my tools and expenses. So if you've enjoyed today's video, like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Comment, because I want to know if it was Ebonstone or Bada Black or whatever it was called, that wash. I know I'm not crazy. I know it existed. And I also, if you guys want to support me on Patreon, that's pretty cool. But always remember, you don't have to. I do this for fun. That's why there are no adverts in these videos. If you ever watch one of my videos and there's an advert, tell me so I can deal with it. No adverts, never. Thank you for watching Wasteland, and I will see you all in the next episode. Goodbye.